I guess I get to, that's a really loud. I guess I get to start here. My brother and I have been farming since, I started going I should say, about 2000. Kind of got us going. I'm a county agent in Dade County, and I used to go west in western North Dakota. And to watch a lot of guys out in that beach area where it kind of got started. And saw what was working for those guys. And back in '87, I had the opportunity to move back home with, get more involved with the farm and work extension and spend my nights and weekends, that type of thing on the farm. And about 2000, I got thrown into farming real hard with my brother. My dad passed away. That same year, we ended up with one of those rainfalls that comes inches an hour, and through the period of about 9 inches. And we had washouts from one end of the farm to the other. And after that whole, went from extremely dry that spring to extremely wet in about 2 days. And my brother looked at me and said, "We got to do something different here." And through the process of thinking about it and watching what I had seen out west, I said, "Let's try no-till." That's how we got started in no-till. And that was 2000. We transitioned part of the farm to no-till. But 2001, we realized we needed to make this work. And we transitioned the whole farm in 2001 to no-till, and we've been no-tilling ever since. In 2008 or 9, we started with the cover crops, like what we see. Again, we farm to cattle livestock about 2,000 acres. And as we've been, like the other guys are talking here, we've been up to 12 crops a year. We're kind of down to that 6 or 7 right now. Spring week, winter week in the mix. We'll go to a broadleaf after that. Follow it up with corn. Get back to a broadleaf again. We're down to spring and winter week. And I guess from there, we've been watching the soil health. We were probably in that 1.9 to 2.5 on organic matter. We're seeing a lot of organic matters now with the cover crops kind of mixed in with it. A lot of organic matters are somewhere in that 3.5 to 4 range for the last 13 years. Incorporated more cover crops in here. We need to get that organic matter increase and grow faster. I guess my number one goal is watching soil health and organic matter. That's the bank. We can get those organic matter to grow. That's what we're shooting for. It won't take enough time. When I work with farmers that call, I get a lot of calls from farmers that say, "Think about going to no-till." They walk me into it. My first question that I always ask them, are your head and your heart into this? Do you want to make the transition? Because if you're just thinking about it, don't do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but if you're going to take that leap of faith, you should do it. I see too many guys that start to fail. One of my biggest frustrations is the guy that kind of no-tills. They'll no-till for 2 or 3 years, they get a wet season, and they got to work it all again. All you're ever, in my opinion, the only thing you're ever going to get is the worst of both systems. You can do it or don't do it. If you're going to do it, jump in and make it work, because it's a system. It's a system you have to follow some rules to make it work. And there's things that work and things that don't. And the hard part that I had as a no-till was, when we first started no-tilling, we got into it with a neighbor farm together. We were both about 2,000 acres. And we went out to help try to pay for the technology back then. We couldn't afford the technology of a smaller farm. We did a lot of custom seeding. Those first 2 years, we custom seeded about, for 14 guys, about 5,000 acres. We put a lot of acres on that field. And within 2 years, we didn't have acres to custom seed because all 14 guys had bought a no-till grow. And no-tiller from the western part of the state told me all the time, he said, "No-till moves 5 miles a year." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "If you watch, you start no-tilling." He said, "Somebody within 5 miles was watching, they start doing it too." Cover crop is kind of the same thing. We're kind of one of the first ones to start cover cropping here, and now everybody starts to do it. And it's catching on. Why? Because it's working. So, we've taken a lot of our bruises. Seems like the flop every year ends up being one on the corner of the busiest intersection in the township. And you take those lumps, and luckily through my job, I can explain to guys what doesn't work, what does work with that thing. We talk about salinity. Lee talks about those areas that just don't grow anything. One of the thoughts I've always had of those areas is maybe you don't have cattle, but plant something permanent down in those areas. Maybe you don't have cattle, but maybe your neighbor does. production off of that, with a permanent cover. It's better than spending $150, $200, $300 an acre, putting those inputs and never taking anything off, but just take them out of the system and try to get them off. So answer those questions.
Go ahead, describe your scenario.
Hello, my name is Anthony Tillman. I farm by Valley City. First, I'll start a little with my background. I have a master's degree from ADSU in weed science, so I look at everything as a weed scientist. Cover crops or weeds. That's what I got to get past. I worked at the experiment station in Minot for 4 seasons, ran the research farm. Then I worked for American Cyanide for 4 years as a sales rep, so I buy lots of chemical. And go through that, and then my dad wanted to retire, and I came back to the farm. Our farm started no-tilling in the early 80s. First was the Hay-Buster 107, seeding winter wheat into wheat stubble. It progressed over the years, expanded more and more, but we never truly went into no-till at that time because we had sunflowers on rotation. And you need to use a yellow ball color, a cut one sound one crop, a weed control. I was lucky when I came back to farm, that was the advent of Spartan and some other herbicides, so that I took the final step into no-till. And I don't do tillage unless I absolutely have to get rid of ruts or some stupid situation that I created. So I would say our farm is basically 100% no-till. Rotations have changed over time. My dad never raised soybeans. That's one of my crops. We always did have a history of corn that is expanding. You talked about crop rotations. I have some good ones, I have some bad ones. I have some landlords, so it's a wheat bean, which I don't like. Most of the other rotations are a 2, 3 or 4 year crop rotation and involve corn, wheat, and sunflowers. In some cases, I don't like the crop, but I will raise barley too on some of my saline soils or trouble areas because it is a crop that will grow. As for cover crop additions, I probably started playing with cover crops 5 or 6 years ago. The first thing I'll say is I don't have all the answers by any stretch. I've tried things, I've had some successes, I've had some failures. It depends on your goal. And listening to earlier talk, I think I know some of my screw-ups that I've done and put some things to change. All I can say is, going with your statement about being no-till to be wholehearted into it, I'm a firm believer. My farming practice is a goal. It's not a perfect, nothing is perfect. It's not a, you can't take a cookie cutter and copy mine. You have to have it because you want to do it, and you have to have a goal. And you have to be willing to change. Because what will work for me, for my soils, may not work for you. It may work, equipment differences. We started with the Hay-Buster 107s. Our ground got to the point that my dad was hairpinning all the time. Switched to the Flexicryl with Eagle Beaks. Went for a few years that way. When I took over, the soils has gotten back to the point I went back to the disc opener in John Deere 1890, and I could now seed into it. The soils changed over time, and it's what you decide you want to do isn't going to stay the same over time because conditions change, and you need to be willing to watch and learn and listen to what the ground's telling you. And then I think we were talking earlier at the table. One other thing that I've watched with neighbors, they'll copy and then they want to follow the same pattern every year. Or, worse yet, they try to correct for last year's mistakes. Well, every year isn't the same. What's a mistake one year isn't necessarily a mistake. It might be the environment. You got to be willing to work with that and watch it. I don't know what else to say other than I keep trying and I keep working with it.
That's what we basically wanted, folks, is to have a couple of folks that have been dealing with these same issues in our local environment and the same soil types and the same hurdles that are in some of what you're thinking are in your way. You know, these folks have been dealing with, they've traveled over those hurdles. Now, like they say, it's not totally perfect science or perfect system yet, but that's what is kind of fun about the whole learning So, let's hear some questions from you guys. I know there's all kinds of things that, I'll just kick us off. Cool wet soils, guys. How do you overcome some of that? Emergence.
I gotta laugh at that statement. That's what everybody tells me, Meyer, you can't raise corn, you can't do any of this because your soil's cool and wet. I'm out there 2 weeks before everybody else sees me. I haven't seen that issue. I will admit, I tend to, when the neighbors start seeding soybeans, for example, I hold off and wait a little bit. Beans seem to be really sensitive. Sunflowers, no. Corn can be, but my planting date is the same as everybody else's.
I always laugh, I work for NDSU, and NDSU has told me for years I can't plant corn no-till because I just can't get it to yield. And it's one of those things that just frustrates the heck out of me. I mean, you learn after time that you plant crops that, my corn generally goes on bean ground warms up a lot faster. I think I asked Beck one time, do I plant my corn on my wheat stubble or my bean stubble? He said, what's your limiting factor, heat units or moisture? Typically for us, it's heat units. So we usually plant it on bean ground. But to be quite honest, my best corn last year was on wheat ground. What was my limiting factor last year? Moisture. So we run a stripper head. So basically when I get done with wheat or barley, I got stubble that's 2.5 feet, it's tall. And I planted corn last year, it was a 90 bushel wheat barley stubble. And that didn't get planted till the 26th of May last year, and that was my best corn at about 136. My stuff that went on soybean ground was in the low 90s. You know, but it had moisture, it stored soil moisture there last year, but moisture was my limiting factor. So you learn to work with what soils warm up faster. Beans tend to go a little bit later. Your ground's typically warmed up by then, so it's not an issue.
Okay, you guys, you talking about cold wet soils, how many use the thermometer on it? Did you measure no-till next to it? What were the differences? Why? What's the problem? The problem is what? The problem is how much water is in the system, right? Because water has a specific heat of 1. It takes a ton of energy to boil water. So the problem is excess moisture in those situations where the temperature is significantly different. And what happens is that in those no-till soils, if they are saturated, you no longer have that airflow to help you warm that soil up. Okay? You're using the albedo effect, or the darker color of the black, to get a little bit of surface temperature increase. But you still have water in there, but you may have less water. So the point here is to manage water. I like plants, but if you go for agriculture too. But the plants, something like a rye, planted the fall before, grows long before your selfer is ever going to get near that field. And it goes back to this, are you going to drive down the muddy trail, or are you going to drive the grass? Carry your thing, the tractor carrying capacity. I love that idea. That's for real. Every one of these no-tillers will tell you they can drive across their field with the same moisture content 7 days before you'll get near a till field. So the water is your issue. It takes a lot of energy to heat water. It doesn't take a whole lot of energy to heat steel. Black piece of metal outside today is warm because the sun is catching it. Okay, so the black does help. But minerals are similar. It doesn't take much to heat a rock either. Rocks on sunny days are hot. The air is part of the insulation. The water is what's killing you. So manage your water. I'm not sure that you need it for that. I know that there are places that your residue's a little off and it's a little sticky and you can get in there a couple layers. You go back to engine evaporation, you're going to make me cringe because I know that's a death on salinity, and especially death in the seeding zone. And that's where you're working with your poultry. If you double your salts in your seeding zone, you reduce your yield. And it may not have to be white, it may not have to be salts. It could just be salinity increases. So I'm a little bit skeptical there. I think you can use rye winter wheat to help. So
on our farm, we don't do tillage. We don't own a piece of tillage equipment. We got rid of it. I've never had that issue. A lot of guys want the sulfur. Personally, I won't want the sulfur. It's too much tillage for me. I mean, we're a guy hunter. I always figure if I can cross it with the sulfur, why don't I just seed it as long as I'm crossing it? That's been my opinion on our farm. My soils aren't the same as yours. But our opinion has always been, if I can get across it with sulfur, why not just seeding it? Because typically I can drive across it once and seed it. But if I try to come across it that second time, I drop it in. But I can seed stuff like guys are doing tillage that can't even get close to what we seed right now. Because our soil health has gotten so good. Why is that ground not drying out? It's because of the tillage. It's I got a guy that I'll sit and argue with, a good friend of mine, a neighbor, that he'll say the same thing. I got it till all the water's in the low areas, it all runs to the low areas, and those areas just never dry out. I said, why does the water run there? You go till it. You gotta get the water to go in up on the high ground so it doesn't run to the low ground. By the time you come in and till that low ground, the water runs down to the low ground and it just sits there. So if I till it, we just make it worse. So our goal is just zero tillage. Get that water to go down and use these cover crops to get some holes punched in the ground. So we don't do tillage. We run a stripper head. Most of you guys that run a stripper head, they came in 10 years ago in this area, most guys got rid of them because they ran into moisture issues. They run out there with a combine and drop a combine in because they held all that moisture. So they didn't have their soil health that came with it. They had a great idea, but it was before its time. I've got a neighbor that when the first year we got our stripper head, we got a field you can't get to dog prairie trail because of trees in the way. Combining next to him, quarter next to him, I said, can I take a pass through your field? To get to my field. I said, I'll come down all the way up and I'll put your truck in the corner and he said, come on across. And he goes, how in the heck do you guys think you're going to seed next year? He said, you're going to have just the most god-awful mess. He just was laughing at me. I said, what are you guys going to do? I'll guarantee you that strip ground that I have is the first ground that dries out in the spring. There's no mat on the ground anymore. Everything's standing up nice and tall. And you get that evaporation. If I get a little rain, that's the first ground. And with no-till, you get 10 minutes of rain, you're going to seed until it dries out and it'll hurt again. Well, I get a little bit of rain, I can still go on that strip ground. So there's no mat on the ground. The reason the ground doesn't dry out in the spring is it stays cool because you can't get that moisture to dry out. It's just, so for us, it's just understanding what makes certain things happen. And it's usually the system that we're using and what we're doing.
Lee,
Yep.
how we gonna do that soil outline?
Plants. Plants move more water.
Do you have a farm now, anything like that?
No, sir. I have not. But I will tell you that Francis Farms in Fargo Hickey Place, and he has a plot right outside of the research center there. Have he favors the no-till. Huh? No, I'm talking about the one in Fargo. And I know that. And he will tell you that the no-till works better than conventional till. And he'll call conventional till hog water. Hog water, if you've ever heard him talk. He says a little bit of rain and it gets really muddy. And you sink down as deep as you tilled it, and that's where you're sitting. I'm not saying I have the answers for your farm. But what the message really is here is that this is a system. If you do one piece of it, it's going to fall apart. It's like building a house one wall at a time and you're going to put sheetrock on before you put the other 4 walls on. It's going to fall down. And so you can do a really good job with a really good no-till drill. You say, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let it build. And it takes time to build this soil health. And there is that lag time of you're still conventional till, but you're using no-till methods because your soil health hasn't caught up to you yet. And the thing that I say about this is we're in a system where we've had 10 years of excess water, or 12 years, or whatever you want to call it. The last couple of years we've held. Okay, so since 91 you've been in excess water. Maybe last year was a little bit better, but if you ended the year like I did, and I got 8 inches of rain in October, I'm back to excess water again. So, I got ways to use water. I showed them up there, the pipes and pipes, and the tillage only uses water. It really doesn't get at the source of the water that we need. And I've had guys that are moving into no-till the last 2 years, if they didn't have a cover crop, they were very unsuccessful. Because that soil was wet and it wouldn't dry and it didn't carry good because you haven't built your soil health and your aggregates and you're getting stuck and they're pissed. The guys that are using cover crops in there, they're driving on green plants, they're using more water, it's building faster, it's still struggles. It's still struggles. I take 3 years in, you got a big
Week in September, 1st of October up there last year. When are we gonna put a cover crop in?
before the week comes up.
So if you surface spread it?
You can surface spread it. If it's that way, you can surface spread it, it'll work. If you're not that way, it won't work when you surface spread it. surface spreader. There's 100 different cover crops that you can pick to put into your system. Dan's using most of them. So he's probably the guy to talk. But you can find a plant that'll fit your system. I firmly believe that. It's not easy. It's going to come down to trial and error, you know, because I don't have the data. Nobody has the data on that. There's good places to start, but it's your system. It's your land. And you do know as much about it. But you're here for a reason, because you're curious. And some of this stuff makes a lot of sense, right, folks? It's that getting to it's going to work part. It's the first 3 years, okay, I'm finding no-till. It's finally working.
It might even be 5 to 7 years. I mean, it takes time. Our first 3-4 years, yeah, we buried a lot of tractors in. The hardest part is having a lot of stubble and having that wet spring and saying, okay, is it wet there or isn't it? Because my soil health hasn't gotten there yet. We got a little too close and we going out real fast at these track tractors, cat track tractors, it just makes you get stuck a little bit further in.
We started out showing up big time. Because legally, and I want this to go away. I just hope that's in proper sold too. And my stuff that was just like these, some of it black, I got rid of all summer. That stuff probably be PP again. And that's just really, really not. So something got barley, and that didn't get ahead, might get seeded. And some of that nice sugarance will be directly on the problem. And that was sold me. I knew about it was much to be covered around that to success. But some of the black is very dangerous to keep again blind.
I've seen some of the same results on the farm. I'm probably not as gutsy as you. I do have a chisel plow that I put the straight copers on that I used for sizing residue originally. I'll run around the fields to check the weather because I've had too many times where the front tires of the tractor have water swinging on because I can't tell it's wet. I don't know what to see, which is too late. You run around with it, and I had one example. Dad just, after it happened, he just shook his head. Pipeline went through. We had a work area, and I worked in a wider area. I didn't check that in the spring. I ran around the field, checked the wet areas, made sure I could get out that field. Just driving, and I'm not where the pipe went in the ground. This is, but it's a work area that I was leveling out in. I buried the tractor there. But in the field that supposedly I can't see that's too wet, I went across just fine.
Good thing you didn't find pipe for better than mine to pipe.
Actually, they packed it so hard there, it was like this floor, so I didn't go down.
We're also finding, we still have these wet spots, we're able to drive through them now, we don't sink down in it. We float through them. The water comes up on the tires, but the soil health has gotten better, we've got more stability in that ground.
There's a couple guys who live in the Hohenhaus brothers. If you've seen them talk, they've got a video in the tractor. They're planting through a foot of water. You hear me? They're planting through a foot of water.
I got a place to change something.
And it works.
You should see the video.
You gotta see the video. It'll blow your mind.
They'll lift up and drive through them.
It'll blow your mind.
I have a question. Okay, you guys, about the disease. I remember in '86, I can't remember the farmer's name, but I had occasion to be with the American North Dakota, and they put no-till because disease and insects.
Rotation. And you're gonna have problems. You're gonna have diseases. You're gonna have bugs. You're gonna have these problems, and they can be worse some years.
But you know, the insects, one thing that bothers me, that's, diseases, I'll agree with you. I've had to manage diseases with fungicides a lot more than I probably would have. But insects, I haven't sprayed a soybean aphid in 8 or 9 years. First of all, thresholds mean something, contrary to the agronomists out of the southern state laws say. You need thresholds, but you also, not you potentially build bad insects, you build your good ones. And I can walk out in a soybean field, for example, the neighbors have sprayed twice for soybean aphid, and I haven't sprayed yet. But the ladybugs and the lacewings are so thick out there. Are there soybean aphids? Yeah, I can find them in every plant. But I can never come anywhere close to even a 50 count average. And like I said, my neighbor sprayed twice. They end up with 30 bushel beans. I count on 40 bushel beans. I think they killed all the predators off.
You might not see that big yield difference, but
Yeah.
I have seen aphids and green lace, or aphids crash through the green lacewings and ladybugs, like you said, 2 days,
Yeah.
3 days.
And you got to
crop rotation.
I think that, and I'll agree with you. Reason three, that's.
Just don't quite make it.
What else have we got? I know there's questions out there, folks, I hear 'em. I just don't want to be the one that hogs them all today. Go ahead, Scott.
My son was here, he did a science fair project on saving the soil, and he wanted to stick around and ask this question, but he had to get back to school. But anyways, I'm gonna ask it for him. He went out and he collected some of the worst ground I got, and put it in the shop here, and he did his test plots and stuff. He sent the data into AgVice, and the organic matter came back at over 4%. This is not something that, nothing has grown on for years. And we're trying to explain that. We have a couple of theories on why that is, but I want to hear you guys speak.
Well, what breaks down organic matter? Biology. What don't you have when the salts are too high? Biology. The salts don't break down organic matter themselves. There's no chemical reaction with the salts in the organic matter. Organic matter is degraded by biology. You've got three different biology pools. You've got a short-term, a long-term, and a stable biology pool in your organic matter. So there's different kinds of organic matter. So the salts are killing the biology. So whatever it was before it got saline is likely what it's going to be now, as far as organic matter. And your organic matter is very too.
And see, and that was our theory, but then we're sitting there trying to think, well, there was that transition time there where it went from, fairly decent ground. I don't think it turned saline just overnight.
Okay, so is this on a low depressional area?
Broken down some.
Right, is this in a low depressional area?
It's along the slough.
And it's pretty good black land,
Yep,
pretty heavy,
yep.
wet often, pretty fine, sticky, muddy, fine. Your organic matter might have been 8, not that long ago. Okay, so you probably lost it, but you're not as low as you think you should be because if nothing's going on out there. So it depends on where you started. See, that's where it's really difficult to make that judgment. That's why you want to measure before and after. And in this case, you didn't have that opportunity. But I'm going to bet low, heavy, flying around before the salts were there, that's going to be highly productive. And it's going to carry a lot of biology with it. It's going to carry a lot of organic production. So you probably started up here, and you're still maybe higher than the rest of the field. But the other factor that happened with the rest of the field is that you blew most of that off in the 30s, the 50s, the 70s, and the 80s when the wind blows. Because your organic matter is concentrated in the surface. Folks, the dirt in the ditch isn't white or gray. It's black. What makes dirt black? Organic matter. So, you might have deposited organic matter in higher positions in the landscape too. There's a lot of ifs.
Well, the other thought we had was salt as a preservative too.
It's a preservative because it prevents biology, kills biology. So it's the same, you said the same thing two different ways.
Yeah.
You said the same thing two different ways.
That's the best way to put it.
I think something that you guys are saying that if we're listening to who you are hearing it, but my brother's been no-tilling for over 25 years. No-tilling is not a good deal. Unless you're putting in with the
with it, I'll give you that, but the point of it was they broke up the prairie. The other thing is that they had to get the seed in the ground somehow. Those are the two main reasons, and I'll give you those. We have alternative solutions for that. We have equipment that can put the seed in the ground without tillage, and we have other ways to kill those weeds. And I don't know that many farming practices that we've been using for 300, 400 years. These guys are talking about switching every 3, 4 years because it's different. Agriculture is very different.
The spin-off of your statement, you can tell me what you think of this opinion. I've had people tell me, well, they want to use tillage because we don't have resistance in weed control tillage. What are perennials? What are some of these other
What
weeds?
was that picture? That was a picture, wasn't it?
And there is nothing natural about tillage, dragging a piece of steel through the ground. I've just had this aversion my whole life to tillage. It's probably one of the most unnatural things you can do. And the big selling point to me when I was younger, when we were switching into no-till, when my dad made the switch from the 107s to the Flexico, we were having problems. We were one of the first air seeders in the territory. So the Flexico guy came out. He was going to help Dad set it, get the machine level, get it working. Our biggest trouble at that point, and then we were probably only about 6 years into it, we had to keep kicking the earthworms out of the way to find the seed in the fur. And the guy, first comment he said was, he had never seen earthworms like that before. And I just, it just files in the back of your head and you keep thinking about that. And that's a common joke in my territory. You dig it open and there's earthworms.
In our area, we don't really have this conversation much, but I appreciate this conversation because we're just solid no-till. And a lot of it Beck's influence, but I mean, you come in our area, you're going to see no-till. And that I know from the county, there's 2 tillers. One was a warrior you can afford it, and the other one, a guy from Oklahoma, and grew up, he still plants 2 packs a week. So he's used to it. But what's happened to us, $7 corn, it just hurt. So east of town, and the county east of us, they used to be diversified, raise a lot of crops, no-till. All of a sudden they got corn bean, because that's where the money is. All of a sudden they started tilling because it was too wet. And now the drain tile is going in 60 miles east of us. And tell me why there's been more drain tile going South Dakota in the last 2 years than there has in 20 years before that. Now tell me why that is. We've got them down there.
I'm sure.
Well, not bashing guys, but now look at, they're really good salesmen. And I know Brian and Darren personally, I know them, they're pretty sharp because they're selling drain tile. The nutrients run down the drain tile, and then they're also selling nutrients. So they kind of got the bonus the best of both worlds, so I hope I didn't step on someone's toes, that's my own deal.
I always tell guys, keep in mind that they have 2 boys. One of them's a communications major, and the other one's an economics major. So ag PhD, I don't think either one of them's got an agronomy degree. So keep that in mind.
I want to say some things about tillage. I know why guys like it. And I stand up here and say, it's a great big believer in no-till, and 66% of my growers are still primarily conventional till. Frustrates the hell out of me. I know why they like it. It makes a hell of a nice seed corn. And that's one of the first challenges you're going to have in no-till is going to be managing your seed bed, managing your depth, and managing your moisture. And the problem with it is it's not consistent. Tillage makes it very consistent. I don't care what soil type you have on the hill spot, the low spot, the edge, the corner. If you till it 4 inches, it's all tilled 4 inches deep. And if you evaporate the water out of it, it's all dry. And when you get a rain, it's all wet in that surface. And when you go in there, you set your planter wet, and once you're done. And I've got guys that'll do this with their 16-year-old kid. They'll come out, they'll set the planter, put him in it, let him drive the tractor. Well, hell, you don't drive the tractor. All he does is turn it to ends. Okay? There's nothing going into that. That's a very simple thing. And I'm not saying that you're simple-minded to do that, but it's highly efficient if you don't have to screw around, keep digging up seeds, right? Okay? So, that gets acres done. I understand that. You make everything consistent, you move fast. You get some water infiltration, definitely. You get some biology. As soon as you get that biology clicking, you start multiplying. You don't add them anymore. It's not 1 plus 1. It's 2 times 4. And it's 4 times 8. And this is why Nan's got 16 crops out there, because it's 32 times 115. It just starts to multiply. And we don't know. Honest to God. There's too many interactions. You ask a science nerd, he's going to say, I'm going to isolate, I'm going to test one thing, I'm going to test it 100 times. And he'll say, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't. You ask him about 3 interactions, he'll go, I don't know. Right? Because it's 3 times 3 times 3. So, that's where we're getting. It's why we don't understand this. We do realize that the system works, and we're listening to Mother Nature and just going on faith to begin with. Honestly, we go on faith. And you commit, and you just know that next year it's going to work better. And next year it's going to work better.
You know, I agree with you 100%. Another thing too, as far as when you get in it for a while, like we have, and you know, you just don't, planning's not even an issue to us. I don't care how much residue or what you have, we just handle it. We've got a way of handling it. For one thing, when it's dewy in the morning, you sleep in. And when you might quit at 9 o'clock if it starts to get dewy again. You just play the cards that are dealt with you, be patient with it. And you know, where like a hoe drill, you could go out there and drill till 12 o'clock and the disc drilling might be shut down at 9. So I mean, but it, you know, like, so just, maybe we've been around it that long, but seeding depth and stuff just isn't even an issue with us. We're just resigned and it works. I mean, it just works.
When you're talking about the residue, one of the things I've seen in our area, I happen to be a little different because I have some course in rotation on my all crop head. And even though I raise corn, I've never bought a corn head because I thought, chop the residue, right? You know how to do it? I can tell you from experience, if you have a chopping corn head and you want to no-till, sell it. Or put it on the rock pile and go get one of those old corn heads that nobody wants with the rollers that don't cut. Leave it standing.
And you don't come in and grind it all up in the fall. You lay it out in there as a mat because then you can't cut through it the next spring.
And I do still use my all crop head combine corn, but you're setting that machine so that I'm cutting it just below the top. Leave as much of the residue standing as you can. And I've watched 2 or 3 neighbors that are going to no-till beans into the corn because they've seen me do it. They like the way it is. They go out with their chopping head. They have this mat residue this thick, and they say, well, we can't even set it deep enough to reach the soil. I said, yeah, you got all your residue on the ground.
And it never dries out. It'll never dry out.
The interesting thing I run into where I have been raising my corn is on some of my sandy fields. And you would think the all crop head's a disadvantage, but for me, actually, it has become an advantage because my biological activity is so extreme. I don't have any residue this spring.
Smaller pieces.
And all I have is the stumps. Everything that I ground up, because I have so many earthworms and so much activity, I'm thinking about starting to do corn on those growing. Just because I'm burning my residue up in my sunflower year, I can't find any corn residue by June or July. It's gone.
The argument I hear to that, I say exactly the same thing. Sell the damn chopping. You want your residue consistent. The chopping corn head, get rid of it. Because you want your residue as consistent as you can get it. And as consistent as you can get is leave it where it is. It doesn't get any more consistent than that. And then they'll say, but all the snow catch. Oh my Lord, all the snow catch. And you know those years there's lots of snow? Yep, there's more snow catch. It takes longer to melt. But there's structure there that you can drive on. You can plant it wetter, and your water leaches faster. Drive by a no-till field after rain, and then drive by a conventional field after rain. Tell me which one's got more ponded water. It's the same thing with your snow. The frost may or may not, it's a factor, so you've got to pay attention to that. So with some of my areas on the northern end, I tend to tell those guys to just wait an extra day or two, because you can go in a day or two before the rain or after the rain, but the other guys can't. You gain that time pretty quickly. And I actually have way better with corn residue like this than
last year, we never got planted till, even down there, till the 1st of May. Everything turned out all right. I'm not saying we don't try to plant as early as we can. I'm not saying sit back and go play cards, but I think we get way too caught up in that calendar. I mean, just let Mother Nature do it. I mean, it was doing it before, so just kind of see what Mother Nature is going to give you and work with Mother Nature.
You say don't plant 94 days warning?
Well, if you do it once.
Right, but, you know,
No, I don't
play within your parameters, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you finding a high roll situation with the resident behind the combine?
That's a challenge.
I've spent enough time, that was one of our biggest challenges, is to get the residue spread. In wheat, I really don't understand these heavy drills. Corn hasn't been a problem because I only run an 8-row head, so my chopper will spread more than one. In wheat, I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to make sure my spreading, you run a stripper.
We went to a stripper head, so there's nothing coming out from that.
But for me with a conventional head, I've spent quite a bit of effort to get it spread as uniform as I can, and that becomes a factor.
Huge issue. And the problem isn't the straw, the problem is the chaff. The chaff is the problem. Because the chaff, you can't force it. It's only going to fly so far. Because it doesn't have enough density to go that far. Yeah, you're throwing feathers, so they don't go very far. That is a big issue. That windrow straw, there is a problem.
The other reason we went to a stripper head in our operations is simply because manpower is an issue for us. I work from 8 till 4, by the time I get home it's 5, and when we get home we run one combine, because it's my brother and I, and we run that stripper head at 5.5 to 6.5 miles an hour. I turn one combine into 2, it's 28 feet, and we move one combine.
Standard soybeans,
Yes.
so that's as much as I know too, right?
Yep.
So, what was my question there? Okay, so my biggest is my one guy is so what are you looking at?
We've got a chaff spreader behind the combine,
How wide is your head on your combine?
30 feet.
It's
We're
not-
at 25, we're at 30, and
Yeah, it's not a 45. 45, I don't think you have a break. I don't think you can spread it. I don't know what you can put on the back. You can put a freaking tree chipper on there. That's what it is.
then a couple of years ago we had,
I don't know.
we had about,
But you can sell all your discs and your tillage equipment and 2 4-wheel drive tractors to make another combine.
You know, we had one combine, hired 2 more, and we got rid of our custom guys, and we got 2 combines, and the reason we get it was straw management, because we do whatever we have to do. We'll stop in the middle of the afternoon. I told you we run 35-foot flexes with power tail boards. The reason we pull our knives, one reason we can throw the straw. I realize the chaff's an issue, but you can go behind anywhere behind our machines, and you really struggle when you plant to see where the combine went. I mean, but we work that hard. I mean, it's a job. We spend a lot of time during the day. If the residue isn't being spread right, we try to do something with it. With the new combine, you can make the tail board go faster one way than the other, but we really work at it.
I also learned to make the wind your friend. Combine on the side of the field and let that straw blow instead of going on the other side. I mean, you don't move chaff with a harrow. So we don't harrow. You can move straw, but straw's not our issue. Chaff's our issue.
But you bury weed seed for the zero. A stripper head, I think, is the real deal. I really do, but it's just a simple fact. We've already head valley. We got corn heads, sunflower heads, all crop heads. so you just, 2 more heads.
I guess I look at the other side now. We have a disc, I have a digger, a rock picker. We had a neighbor came over and helped us here a few years back on some wheat before we went to the stripper head. He didn't have a chaff spreader on the back, we did. And the next year we planted soybeans into that, and you could see every row where he combine. Crop was nice and dropped down. And we followed each other around the field. It was a big deal here. And so that residue holds a lot of disease. So doing a good job of spreading that residue is pretty important.
I only have 20 questions left. So everything I see at radish, pothole, that's an actual basically. Yes or no?
No. so then the reason to go to no-till isn't just organic matter. That's one small factor of soil health. And actually, I don't even use it as a measure of soil health. It is one that you can use, and it's an important factor, but we have such a slow effect on organic matter, you know, it's only part of the system. And so, this is we talked about this in a meeting earlier this week. How do we measure soil health? Well, we talk about organic matter, we talk about the Haney soil test. Those are all tests. I like to dig a hole. I like to call earthworms. I like to smell the soil. I like to look at the aggregates, and I like to walk out there when it's really wet. That's the best measurement of soil health that you've got. Are these things right here. That's your best measure of soil health.
You know, you talk about soil sampling, and I just love our ground, our soil, but I catch myself every once in a while, you'll be soil sampling, and you'll have that stuff in the bucket, and then you'll be an earthworm or two that you got with your soil sample, your soil probe. Pretty soon you're looking at the soil, you're running it through your hands, and you kind of get to daydreaming about it. And I mean, I'm not, it just kind of, I don't know, it's just a strange feeling about, I mean, how healthy that soil is. You can just tell by having it in your hands.
When you break it up and it breaks up like cottage cheese, you know you got something going. And it's not that clump when it comes out.
How about anhydrous and earthworms?
Full applied, I don't believe it's an issue. The earthworms are on one side.
I think you're not going to hurt the earthworm. I mean, you might take some out, right?
It takes them out in that band, but it goes in.
Now, and I cypress my corn and sunflowers with anhydrous. That, you probably, again, you take a few out, but it hasn't seemed to affect my earthworm population. And that's 99% of my nitrogen is in the soil.
I know it, but I don't mean anhydrous is good.
You know, another thing we did with, speaking of, on our irrigation, we went down and planted night crawlers. You go to the bait shop and the fishing, the night crawlers are about being, you can get a full rack pretty cheap, and then we'll go on our wheel tracks and we plant night crawlers, and it's amazing how fast they colonize, and I mean, it's amazing how fast they come along, and that's really helped on our irrigation.
That's the first guy I've ever heard planted one.
We had that question, has anybody ever done that? And where would you get on it? You just answered that question in
Did
there.
that on the beach years ago, I know West Forest State. Back to the point where I think they got so high in night crawlers, it was eating up the residues of that acid.
You know, another thing too, you guys, and we mentioned it earlier, and this is just a word of warning, because this is a mistake I made more than once. If you're planning on going on a field of stubble, and I think you guys, even if you're just gonna try one field or whatever, is really think about what chemicals you put on it. I mean, boy, that's pretty easy to find when you need the battle and you put the wrong thing on, and you go to plant cover crop, and you say, why did that cover crop come up, or why did it die, and then, oh, I put the wrong, so just think ahead. I mean, because there's a lot of chemicals out there you can kind of get around that a little bit. I mean, so just, so just really think about it. I mean, I made that mistake, and just so if I can help someone else to make it, I mean, that.
Give you a prime example of that situation. I was controlling my worst noxious weed on the farm, canola. And CB rail goes through my farm, and they dump both Roundup ready and Amy canola. So when I spray my Roundup ready beans, I go get a screen, mix it up, so I'm an ounce rate of pursuit that takes care of the canola. That fall, I went out with the four-wheeler with the spinner spreader, spread some turnips and radishes and some low areas that shouldn't have been beans. Never come, couldn't throw a white. Well, duh, I had pursuit down. I didn't put pursuit on, but I put extreme, which is pursuit and Roundup. Cover crop, that becomes a real issue.
Right, and that's one of the frustrating issues though, because pursuit is broken down by microbes. So if the microbes are happy, healthy, and working, and going really fast, if you got good water, you got good temperature, you can do that and win. I've done that after authority assist, which is pursuit. We're going at a 3 ounce rate, 2.5 ounce rate of pursuit out there. Come back and turn some radishes in the fall, look like a champ. But we had the right year. So then in the next year, you want to fails it. What the hell's wrong? So it's one of those hidden mistakes that can or may not hurt you.
Turnips and radishes planted into wheat stubble sprayed with gold sky or rimfire.
Even white match.
I've done
Why don't you do that too?
But I've done it with gold sky and rimfire and got a started some of the ALS last and the turnips and radishes all died. So there's factors in here that gets to be really complicated trying to keep that all straight.
You know, right or wrong, it's just the way, you know, like if we're going on a wheat stubble, a lot of times they want to plant right behind the grill and all these plant oaks, I like those is the pipe that through it, it doesn't realize fall's coming. A lot of plants will come along and they'll say fall's coming and shut down, and those will just grow right up the building, but you don't have a clue what's happening. I love those when they head out, because that means that they're mature. And then the one thing of why I'm saying this is I'll go and I'll have like oats, flax, more ethnic trait, not canola. This year I'm using buckbuster rate, and then a little bit of turnips. There's twice as many seeds in rape than there is in radishes, and you get just as big a top, taking just as much carbon. You don't have as big a cap, the cap where it goes about as deep. But the only reason I'm saying that, throw a few sunflowers in. If your grasses get too thick, you take some cleptoma, take your grasses out, you still got all your broadleaf. So I mean, that's just kind of the way. And then another thing before I plant, what I do anyway, is I'll use buckle. So I'll go in with some buckle and some Roundup. Buckle will pretty well take your weeds out. But if you would ask me, what weed are we most worried about on our farm? I'm going to say I don't know, because we don't have we've got our weeds, I feel, pretty well under control. The one I'm kind of worried about now is the pigweed. There's coming a lot, the Spartan's breaking down, there's no Spartan prowl on the sunflowers now, the Spartan Express. But so, I mean, that's probably the only weed that's really an issue. So, I mean, but we've got really good luck with using buckle pre-plant on the cover crop.
What about dandelions?
Dandelions aren't really, we just don't have them. I mean,
We've dealt with dandelions a little bit, and a lot of my problems have come from some of the CRP that's been in there forever. Flush and you get that spread. If you're starting no-till, keep a handle on dandelions. People need to get them all late.
Spray in October, spray when it's frozen. You can smell before they need to do the next spring in March because it breaks down microbially, the same thing. And dandelions get
But if you
going.
don't keep an eye on that one,
It kills them.
So the big thing too with dandelions is poor rotation. My neighbors that fight the dandelion problem are citing corn rotation. I just throw a weed in the rotation so you got one fall where you can go after them, raise hell with them, and that, I don't have to.
they're controllable.